briefly about what happened. This man, Rayshawn Brooks, fell asleep at the wheel of his car in the drive-thru of a Wendy's. So one white cop is called, and he treats him very well, and they go through everything, go through a little field sobriety, and he's found that he failed. Another white cop shows up, and as they try to handcuff him, a scuffle ensues, and Mr. Brooks manages to secure the taser from the second white cop,
right,
and takes off running with it, and turns and shoots, if we could see the video just at least one time, shoots the taser, the stun gun at the officer and misses, and the officer shooting his stun gun at Rayshawn Brooks and misses.
Right.
And then, as we know now, the officer reaches for his handgun, pulls it, shoots 3 times, hits Rayshawn Brooks twice in the back.
Right.
Completely out of bounds. Right. Completely uncalled for. I'm getting chills again talking about it. How could this happen now? After all we've been through in that city, which has such a strong, vibrant black culture and such a strong black mayor.
It's the birthplace.
There's nothing strong about their mayor. There's nothing strong about their mayor, Keisha Bottoms. Sound like you can call her up, you know, to be an escort or some shit like that, like she's stripping at some club. Keisha Bottoms. Like, give me a break. A whole bunch of women flooded into the political sphere in 2016 after Trump won. And everywhere these women pop up is nothing but confusion. Or there's Muriel Bowser over there in Washington, D.C., or the pansexual mayor in Seattle, or the governor, Whitmer, in Michigan, or that idiot that looks like Yoda in Chicago, Lori Lighthead. Everywhere these females are popping up, they're causing nothing but confusion. The woman has wonderful qualities. She's essential. She's beautiful. But the Lord did not create her to lead, much less lead masses of people. They're perpetually confused.
It's the birthplace of civil rights. And it happened on Friday night. What?
Yeah.
And the officer can be heard on the tape saying, I got him. You got him? And again, the police chief has already resigned, but wouldn't your department heads all be lecturing all the cops, black and white? Right. At this time, we have to be ultra careful and cautious.
Yes.
We have to go to the nth degree to try not to use lethal force. That didn't require lethal force.
Especially, Skip, because the situation, look, you got the guy's information. You know who he is.
You got him.
He got his car. He had impounded his car. He's going to have to come get it.
Let him run.
He's going to come get it.
Wait, did he kill somebody?
Right.
Was he armed? No. Did he rob a bank? No.
You know, they're making relatively reasonable points, relatively valid points. But, I mean, it's no disrespect. I would have hoped that brothers out there, number one, are not going to drink and drive because you put your own life at risk, but you put other people's lives at risk. But if you were stopped by the police and you were found to be, quote unquote, over the limit, that you would just take your chastisement, do your day or your night in jail or whatever the hell you had to do, bail yourself out and learn your lesson. That's better than trying to slug it out with the cops, stealing one of their weapons, and then acting surprised when you get shot. Like, I have to deal with reality. Idealism is for super liberals. That's what these guys are arguing about. They're arguing about idealism. How they would love things to be in a perfect world. In a perfect world, yeah. You're a police officer and you get beat down by someone that you're trying to arrest and he steals your weapon. In a perfect world, you say, yeah, just let him go. Let him go. It's no problem. It's all on camera. Yeah, we might get reprimanded and cited for it, for letting this guy escape, but just let him go and we'll track him down later. All that stuff sounds nice. But in the real world, when you're trained to use a weapon and you have a weapon on you and you're under attack and this guy goes and pulls out or pulls your taser from you and uses it on you, no, things happen. It's better to address these type of issues from the decision making that we need to do to avoid shit. Yes, the police need to be held accountable for the wicked shit that they do. So there should be pressure put on them as well. There's no doubt about that. But we have to start with us so that we can avoid craziness. Or you'll just end up being another name that they talk about on TV. And these people don't really give a fuck about the black man anyway. You know, you're just someone to fill a segment. That's it.
He fell asleep behind the wheel of his car and he was driving intoxicated.
Right.
We know that.
Yes.
Okay, so we want to keep him off the streets, but you got his car.
Right.
Okay? So he's running. Just let it go. Call him in and you'll apprehend him.
We just saw this, 4 years ago, skip with Walter Scott.
Okay.
Remember in South Carolina?
Same
He
thing.
takes
It just
off
happened all over again. I got it. And obviously the Wendy's got burned, and I'm sorry for the people who own the Wendy's because it wasn't.
Yes, a Caucasian Antifa member burned down Wendy's, and they blamed them Negroes down there in Atlanta.
Fault.
Right.
But I get it.
Right.
And more buildings might burn. And now we're just pouring gasoline on a fire that was already raging.
Correct.
And now I'm reading this morning, and I don't know any more details. There's a 19-year-old woman in Tallahassee who was a very active and vocal protester.
Yes, who was kidnapped by a so-called black man. Let's keep it moving. Let's get back to Kyrie.
And she posted that she had been raped, and then she disappeared, and she's found dead. And I don't know why. There's no cause of death yet.
Right.
But are we seeing it again? Are we seeing it again and again and again and again? So my point is, all of a sudden, Kyrie's words take on a whole different meaning.
Right.
Dwight Howard's post, which was powerful, he's also, it came across as anti-play, even though his agent stepped up and sort of walked it back a little bit. That's not what he's saying. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Nothing against Dwight Howard, but he comes off as someone who's been told, this is where you're going to stand. You're going to stand with Kyrie Irving. Anyone who's ever heard Dwight Howard speak knows that he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
He was flat out saying that right now basketball or entertainment period isn't needed at this moment and will only be a distraction. Well, I get that.
Right.
And Kyrie can now make an even stronger point that the thing that they do the greatest, that we all miss dearly, if you withhold it, it does make a powerful statement to me at this point in time.
You can hold it, or you can withhold it as long as you have an end game. I'm not quite sure if any of these guys quite have an end game, but I'll be addressing that a bit more in the series that I do on Kyrie and Perk. Because Kyrie Irving says something that pretty much showed that he's not quite aware of the steps that he needs to get to where he eventually got to. Because I agreed with some of the things that he said about so-called blacks forming their own league. But once again, he shows that he lacks nuance. But outside of that, the response to Kyrie broaching the subject of so-called black men having their own league or forming their own league reveals so much about what these liberal Negroes are about and what the masses of our people, so-called black people, are actually about. Which is at all cost, we must maintain the rapport, the toxic and dysfunctional rapport with the so-called white man. Once again, pro-blacks are actually pro-white because you cannot have one without the other. You cannot have black without white and vice versa.
I don't want to see them not play.
Right.
I need them,
we need them.
Yes. And I get
Selfishly.
But now, my conscience is saying, you don't need it that badly. You don't need it as badly as the black community needs this right now.
Right.
Some big statement made.
Right, Skip.
No, what the so-called black community needs is for the so-called black man to come into a greater understanding of who he actually is. When I say the so-called black man, I'm talking about the captivity. I'm talking about you brothers here in America who were quote-unquote brought here on slave ships. That's the most ballyhooed factor or version or avenue through which they acknowledge the existence of the so-called black man here in America, but also, of course, the quote-unquote black aboriginals who are already here, and also the so-called blacks who came here from Europe, who make up the bulk of the so-called blacks here in America. Not just on slave ships, so-called slave ships, but also who came here as explorers or refugees from the quote-unquote race wars in Europe. So we have to come into an understanding of who we are and who we're supposed to be, and everything will resolve itself after that. But we do have to take a much stronger nationalistic stance within our quote-unquote communities. All this marching and protesting, and there's no talk about the economic aspect. And people say, well, how can you stipulate anything economically if you don't have money? That's a lie. So-called black people spend the most money out of any race on the planet Earth. We have the money, we're just spending it wrong. We're investing in the flourishing of other races by constantly being customers in their businesses. If we stop being customers in their businesses, I promise you they would uproot and go back to their own people, establish their own communities, and do their best from there. The main problem is that we don't want to see another so-called black person do well because we're spending money on them. Our attitude is, who does this nigga think he is? Why should I have to buy something from you? You're black, I'm black, I should get it for free. And that's why our people always end up in the same condition. You have to have strong culture to have strong commerce. You have strong commerce, you have strong economy. You have strong economy, now you can dictate things to politicians.
I wouldn't be surprised if the league puts a patch, BLM, on everybody's jersey that's in the
fine.
bubble.
All right.
And that does a lot of nothing other than promote the Democratic Party, because BLM is a front for the Democratic Party.
Skip, I believe and I get it, Skip, and I heard the video you heard too, and one of the officers comes up and says, we're going to take care of this, and you hear him says, okay, I got it. Skip, I don't know if you've ever been hunting, but that's what guys say when you kill it. Oh, I got one. What'd you get?
Once again, Shannon Sharp, Mr. Fantastic from Fantastic Four. That's a hell of a stretch. He took the officer saying, I got him, to a hunter saying, I got one. No, sir, try harder.
An animal? Bro, you just took a human life and talk about you got it?
Shannon Sharp, go be a police officer for a month. When you detain someone and your partner's speaking to you over the radio, Sharp, did you get him? What are you going to say? Yes, I was able to capture this melanated human being. Over. Shannon wants to be racially relevant so bad. That's why he talks a lot of the race stuff. I mentioned this previously. I think that even he understands that one day this sports stuff is going to dry up, but the race talk is never going to dry up.
I believe he was embarrassed that his stun gun, his taser, got taken by the suspect, right?
Yeah, he got his ass wazaza.
And that's the thing, though, Skip, is that you have all of his information. You have his driver's license. You know who he is. You have his car. Skip, if he took your gun and you have a firearm and you want to pursue it, okay, I get that. But the stun gun, he's running away. You diffused the threat. There is no longer deadly confrontation.
So Shannon Sharp, just to play quote unquote devil's advocate, if this person, Rashard Brooks, gets away with the officer's stun gun and mentally he's not where he needs to be, and he approaches someone else, just walks up to them on the street and stuns them and takes their pocketbook or their wallet, and that person has a heart condition and they lay down on the ground and die, whose fault is that? When the officer is speaking to whoever their commanding chief is or their commanding officer is, and their commanding officer says, do you know that the perpetrator who took your stun gun went on to rob someone because they were trying to get money to get back home, and that person ended up dying because they were shot by your stun gun? Why did you not pull out your weapon to stop the perpetrator? These guys, they just talk like, this person, Rashard Brooks, like they just know he just had the best interests of everyone at heart. Once you flip out like that, right off the bat, your sanity has to be questioned. Your mental stability has to be put into question. But he knew why he was doing this, because he didn't want to go back to prison.
Running away. So you shoot him in the back?
There's a reason why in most of these cities and states where so-called black people go out in droves to vote for Democratic mayors and governors, there's a reason why in those places the crime rate skyrockets. Because they understand that crime is a very important contributor to the economy. The prison industrial complex brings in multi-millions to the states and multi-billions to the country. So the job of the quote-unquote Democrat is to act as if they're your friend. Don't get it twisted. When you have quote-unquote Republican governors or mayors, they're going to bring the crackdown in different ways. They're going to over-police and maybe lock you up for little things. But the Democrat is where crime is always going to flourish, because they're going to let so much go.
They say 60% of the unarmed victims that's killed by the police in Atlanta, 60% are shot in the back.
Okay.
It wasn't a good look. And the mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, and she's trying to like, look.
She's not trying to do shit. What Keisha Lance Bottoms is trying to make sure is that she does not alienate the populace of Atlanta or Georgia, because she thinks that her name is in the running to possibly be a vice presidential candidate under Joe Biden. So she has to make sure that she toes this racial line very carefully. That's all it's about with that person, Keisha Lance Bottoms.
Trying to root this out, but Skip, that's so ingrained in what they do, Skip. It's like when you put that uniform on. I was talking to my barber, and I says, let me ask you a question. You got clippers, you got scissors in your hand. What are you going to do with that? You're not going to go make an omelet. You're going to cut hair. You do what you do. When you put that uniform on, Skip, you take on that person, that persona. I got a gun, I got a taser, I got a bulletproof vest. You take on that, Skip, and it's so...
Shannon Sharp, since you've decided that you know how every police officer thinks when they put on their uniform, don't be upset when certain police officers think that they know how every black man who wears a hoodie thinks. I mean, he just makes so many broad generalizations every day on this show. And maybe he does it because that's what he really thinks, or maybe he does it because he's trying to build up his wokety fan base on IG or Twitter or what have you. But most of his statements regarding race are extremely irresponsible and not helpful to the mentality of the so-called black man. It's a bunch of fucking fear-mongering. Don't get it twisted. There are a lot of quote-unquote racist cops out there. But there are also cops who just try and do their damn job. Just like there's a lot of niggas out there trying to rob you, but there's also a lot of so-called black men out there who just trying to earn a fucking living and go home to their families.
You saw the way they were doing the peaceful protesters, beating them, spraying mace in their face when they're doing nothing. Skip, that's...
Who's they, Shannon Sharp? Is that all the police, or is that a few guys? But I guess you wouldn't know because you haven't been to any of the damn protests. You just sit at home and talk shit.
Grain, yeah. Because they've been going up.
And I say that because Shannon Sharp is woke, so he's supposed to be at the protests. I've never seen him at one protest yet.
To do that for hundreds of years with impunity. This qualified immunity is a wonderful thing for a police officer, Skip. Basically, it says you can violate someone's civil right, and I can't be sued.
Yep.
Now, that's actually a valid point. They have to do something about something like that. Police officers who are found to consistently be involved in situations where they have infringed upon the civil rights of a quote-unquote perpetrator, assailant, whoever they've harassed or arrested, their name should be entered into a database. Not necessarily privy to the public, but it should be in a database where they can be evaluated by a board, a state board, city board, or what have you.
Okay, so what Kyrie basically did on Friday night was take on LeBron James. Mm-hmm. And they have been sort of friendly rivals in the past.
Right.
And I'm sure Kyrie, there's a part of him that wants to stand up even taller than LeBron is standing.
Right.
I think that Kyrie is just someone who thinks that he's been placed on the earth to be something other than a basketball player. And if you want to say that he has that in common with LeBron, you can. But I don't really think that LeBron, in his quote-unquote heart of hearts, as Skip Bayless would say, thinks that he's something other than a basketball player. I think that he truly knows that he's just a basketball player who has opportunities to influence the world in other ways because he has very powerful sponsors. And as long as he does what his sponsors tell him to do, everything will go well.
He said, I'm all in.
Right.
Let's play.
Right.
The owners voted, what was it, 29 to 1
Yep.
to play.
Right.
The player representatives voted 28 to 0 to play. So it's a done deal,
Right.
we think.
Right.
But Shannon, I must suggest to you, the pressure is going to mount on LeBron James over the next 24 to 48 hours. He has what seems like billions of...
Right, but we already know what LeBron James is going to do. LeBron is going to revert to his globalist altar, where we all just have to come together and unite. LeBron waffles between the racialists and the globalists a lot like the liberal black woman does. But he knows where his bread is buttered. His bread is buttered by being a globalist. So he's going to resort to the, black people have been oppressed, but we all have to come together. We're going to need everybody to be on board. That rhetoric.
On social media, and he is aware, he does read what they say to him and about him. Well, you know and I know there's going to be now a new backlash of LeBron. You can't play now.
Right.
You don't think he's going to second guess it?
No, all he's going to do is have some of his plants in the media put forth the propaganda that he needs to have put out to try to sully the words and the reputation of Kyrie Irving. That's how LeBron works. He's not going to go back and forth with Kyrie in the media. He's going to let his plants do that for him.
It's possible he would crumble under the new pressure to say, we just can't do this right now. It's possible to me. I hope not for our sake.
Possible, but I believe it's highly unlikely, Skip. Right now, look, the NBA is a star-driven league. The NFL is a team-driven league. Skip, it doesn't matter. As long as you got that star on by your helmet, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It doesn't matter who the running back. But
not quite, Shannon Sharp. I promise you that if the NFL players went on strike and there were replacement players, the NFL ratings would dip precipitously.
Like that in the NBA, because it is a star-driven league. Now, from what we know is that the superstars really want to play. The Giannis is the...
Allegedly. From what I understand, Dame Lillard and maybe even James Harden have some trepidation about coming back. I mean, if you call them superstars. I don't, but...
Harden, Steph Curry, well, Steph not going, but I'm saying those guys want to play. Mm-hmm. So, as long as LeBron have those guys, but if you start getting a James Harden or Giannis or Kawhi, and all of a sudden it's like, nah, Dame Lillard, no, I'm good. Okay. Where do you go?
Okay, but Shannon, who is the most...
That's why LeBron James made sure that he had those guys on that conference call. He knows that he needs Kawhi Leonard and Giannis to make their appearance in the bubble, because if they don't show up, then everyone's going to say that LeBron James does not have a real championship. So that's why when they had that conference call, those guys was on the line. I believe he also has Steph Curry, because he knows how influential Steph Curry is. He don't really care for Steph, but he knows how to use Steph, because he knows that Steph Curry is a quote-unquote nice guy who wants to fit in. Steph Curry's always kind of been left out of that little group, with Chris Paul and LeBron and Russell Westbrook and those type of guys. They don't really like Steph too much. So LeBron said, let's include Steph in the conference call, because Steph, he knows that deep down Steph wants to fit in with those guys. And he also knows that he needs the Kawhis and he needs Giannis to make their appearance in the Disney World bubble so that he can win a quote-unquote real championship.
An influential activist in professional basketball. It's not even close.
Right.
Times 100 is LeBron.
Yes.
So,
you mean fake activists, fake woke activists. The guys who are really doing things for their quote-unquote community, you'll never hear about, because they don't talk about it on social media like LeBron James does. If LeBron gives $2 to a homeless man, he's going to film it and put it on IG.
All hinges me. I kept waiting over the weekend. I'm sort of looking. I don't follow LeBron, but
yes, you do. Stop lying, Skip Bayless. Not only do you follow him on IG and Twitter, but your apartment is probably about 2 blocks away from LeBron, and you have high-powered binoculars looking into his window, looking at Ernestine, talking about, Ernestine, look, he doesn't have a shirt on. Wow, he's ripped. Oh my goodness, I have to report about this tomorrow on Undisputed.
Googling, I'm just trying to make sure he doesn't come down, drop the hammer and say, okay.
He's probably behind the scenes calling guys.
He might be.
Are we in?
LeBron is always behind the scenes calling guys. He has to make sure that they're on one accord and that they know what type of information to put out on the national airwaves. LeBron's not going to be on the phone with Russell Westbrook and them guys, but he will be on the phone with Kendrick Perkins, with Matt Barnes. Those type of guys who are going to put out the misinformation that he needs to have put out and the disinformation that he needs to have put out.
This is what we need to know, because if I'm going to put my name on it and says, okay, this is what we need to do, not only for the game's sake, but for the movement's sake. Because but Skip, you got to realize now, even though those people in the 60s were protesting, they had jobs. They went to work.
Yeah.
Even though some of those lasted like a year. I think the bus boycott down in Alabama was like a year. The city in North Carolina was like 300 days. So, Skip, but people went to work.
Okay, so I appreciate on Saturday morning, Austin Rivers stepped up and defied what Kyrie said.
Right.
Austin is not a star.
Right.
His father is Doc Rivers.
Right.
You get that, but that doesn't qualify Austin as a superstar.
No, it does not.
And yet, I liked what he said. He made it first about money, and he said 99% of the players in this league do not make the money that Kyrie makes.
Right.
Okay, so that's a strong point, because there is money to be made that's going to be left on the table here.
Right.
So a whole bunch of players are going to say, man, I don't know if I can do without.
Right.
So what are they reduced to?
Right, but I don't think that's ever been Kyrie's point. I think Kyrie's point has always been that he's speaking for the players who actually don't want to play and have told him that they don't want to play. I don't believe that Kyrie's trying to speak for anyone who wants to play. Nor do I believe that Kyrie thinks that they should shut down the whole proceeding necessarily, or that he's trying to have the power to do so. I think that Kyrie's trying to help people understand that a large amount of NBA players don't want to play, and they should not have to play or feel compelled to play because one player wants to get a fake championship. So the LeBron James factor is there. And I'm sure that Kyrie acknowledges it and understands it. But I think that Kyrie's approaching this from the standpoint of, a lot of these guys don't really want to do it, and they don't have the name recognition to come against LeBron, and they feel intimidated. So I'm going to speak up for him.
75% of their salary, but that.
And Dame Lillard agrees with Kyrie. He's one of those guys who has quote unquote superstar status, but he's scared of speaking out against LeBron because he spent so much time under LeBron's wing.
For many of them, that's crucial money.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, and Austin made the point, we can do both, that you just made. In fact, you can also argue the other side, the LeBron side, you can do even more if you get your platform.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And Austin said if you want to donate some of your money that you do make from this to Black Lives Matter causes, feel free to do.
I.e., if you want to donate your money to the Democratic Party, go ahead and do it.
Right. That could be more of a help. But in the end, I can no longer criticize or, God help me, condemn Kyrie.
Right.
He's basically saying it's not about shut up and dribble. It's about speak out and don't dribble, right? That's an even stronger message to send. We're going to speak out, but we're not going to dribble anymore.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, Kyrie ain't going to dribble regardless. I mean, he's injured. So it's easy for him to say that shit.
Not going to entertain you anymore. We're going to withhold that.
Yeah, I think the thing, Skip, when they started putting this together, I think COVID was the biggest thing. Okay, how do we convince these guys that they're going to be isolated for an extra period of time?
It was all about COVID.
Right, and then, okay, we'll slowly start to let family members start to come in, but there's no out. Once you get in, you're in. Ain't no going outside of the bubble, coming back in. It's not like, Skip, it's like my grandma used to tell me and my brother, boy, stay in or stay out. You either stay in the house or you stay out the house. Those are your two choices. Ain't no back and forth.
Yeah, boy, don't come up in my house unless you're out there picking cotton like you're supposed to. I mean, shit. In and out. You stay out there in them fields and bring that shit in the house so we can sell it to Masso.
So basically that's what this was about, this bubble. You get in, you're not getting out until this thing is over. Obviously you lose, Skip, you go home. But the teams that keep advancing, Skip, they were not going to be allowed to leave. And then that tragic event happened on Memorial Day. Skip, that changed everything.
You mean that ritual that happened on Memorial Day? Because that's what that was.
That changed everything.
Yep.
And people got upset, and people are still in the streets to this day. We thought it was going to last a couple of days. I remember.
People ain't upset. They just don't have shit else to do. All those people out there marching, let's be for real. 95% of the people out there, quote unquote, marching, don't have nothing else better to do. They don't have anything else better to do at all. They don't represent anything or anyone other than chaos. They damn sure do not represent the so-called black man. It's 90% non-black people out there. It's 95% non-black men out there. They don't even know why the fuck they out there marching.
A week after, I like, Skip, I think it's going to die down, but people are up in arms. They're still going strong.
I think they're going to be going stronger.
Yes.
Now.
Yes.
Because I thought, silly me, this would start to eliminate some of that racist mindset, but...
Well, the mainstream liberal media, they're just trying to find race stories to carry people through the summer so that, when September rolls around, they can potentially go into their quote-unquote second wave, whatever that is.
Friday night?
No, because I think the thing is, Skip, is that they thought that, and then you pick up Google and you look on the internet and you still have people saying certain things. And they say, see, if this is what's going to happen. If we start back to dribbling, our focus will be taken off this.
Yep.
People won't be held accountable for their actions because they'll be talking about basketball and the championship. And so we'll lose a lot of the momentum that we've gained over the last 3 weeks by doing what we're doing. And we don't want to lose any steam. But all I'm saying is, guys, is that this is 400 years in the making. And although change, I believe, is inevitable, Skip, it's going to take time. You're not going to undo a system that's been in place for 400 years. It's going to take gradual. So my thing is, and for anybody, the guys that says, okay, we shouldn't play, we should just do this, what changes would you like to see immediately enforced that would put your mind at ease that says, okay, I see you guys heading in the right direction, we'll go play. But don't think for 1 second we're not keeping our eye on you. I just want to know what would be the immediate change they would like to see.
Okay, so bottom line to this for LeBron James, he now has 2.
It's just very interesting that that topic is coming up when it comes to the NBA, because supposedly the NBA is so progressive. But then you look at the front office and there's hardly any quote-unquote black faces there. Very few quote-unquote black executives. Only 7 so-called black head coaches for a league that's so progressive. What have they been talking about for the last couple years? Let's see if we can make Becky Hammon a head coach. I think that a lot of that's going to be put by the wayside now. I'm sure that they'll try to bring it back up if this race conversation ever subsides. But this notion of women being head coaches in the NBA is a fucking joke. It always has been. They really need to start focusing and concentrating on getting the token women associated with the NBA out of it and replacing them with black men. Hopefully this will give a lot of these brothers that idea and go from there, because no, women should not be acting as executives and coaches over men. That's why you guys have the WNBA. Go there and preside over the women there.
Teammates that I know of strongly against playing.
Right.
I think Dwight is still strongly against it, even though his agent walked it back.
Right.
Dwight is confused just like his damn sexuality. Dwight don't know what the hell he want to do.
But Avery Bradley, I read last night, and I was not aware, has been a quiet force behind the scenes. He has no social media account.
Right.
But I read that it was he who came up with that sentence that LeBron tweeted. I thought it was from LeBron originally, but that was just something that he asked every Laker teammate. Avery.
For some reason, Skip Bayless believed that LeBron James is some type of Nat Turner, Denmark VC, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X figure. Like, Skip is your prototypical pseudo-socialist, white guilt-ridden Caucasian from middle America who grew up, you know, around environments where every Caucasian person just referred to black people as niggers and monkeys and gorillas, and he probably spewed some of that language himself, but he was just so in awe of the so-called black man that he don't even know what to think. And he looks at LeBron James and says, wow, what a strong nigger. I mean, black man. But he gives LeBron so many qualities that LeBron just does not have.
Did to tweet, which is, if you ain't with us, we aren't with you.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You know what that means.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay. So I thought it was original from LeBron because he's highly capable of coming up with that.
There's nothing original about LeBron. Everything from his fake activist sentiments to the number that he wears, he stole from somebody else.
Sort of a slogan for the
Correct.
black community,
Yeah.
but it was from Avery Bradley. So I think LeBron has some damage control to do even within his own team.
Right.
No damage control. LeBron gonna be there regardless. LeBron's attitude is, Avery, if you feel that strongly, brother, I support you. Stay home. We'll ship you your ring at the end of the season.
I don't know. He's going to have a lot of pressure on him for the next.
We're still 6 weeks away,
Yeah.
Skip.
Mhm.
This thing is you're closer to what transpired to lead you here than you are getting to the season starting again. So I believe there's some time to say, okay, guys, what do we got to do? Because we got to be all in. Because at the end of the day, Skip, if we come back and play, the ultimate goal is winning the championship. And I think the greatest thing, in the grand scheme of things, that's unimportant. But if you're playing the game, that's of the utmost important. So I think LeBron is going to have to get these guys together. Okay, what are we? Are we all in, or we can't be half in and half out? You thinking about this over there and you thinking about that over there? We need to come together as one. And what is it, guys? What is it? And Skip, it might be a situation you have to go home. You might have to leave people behind, Skip.
You might.
They might have to go out and try to find it, and maybe Boogie Cousins is healthy enough to come play. And maybe they have to find someone else that's able to come play. And Avery.
Good luck with Boogie Cousins. Let me say this. If the Lakers go to that bubble without Dwight Howard and without Avery Bradley, that would seriously compromise their team. Seriously. One of the things that the Lakers have going for them is that they have very good defenders at the guard position in Danny Green and Avery Bradley. If they were to lose Avery Bradley and then you lose that post defender in Dwight Howard, I mean, that would really tip the scales in favor of the Clippers, in my view. Because in my view, Kawhi is already better than LeBron. Not by much. I mean, it's almost indistinguishable, but I would take Kawhi over LeBron. Now, how healthy and how confident will Paul George be, and how fervent, how aggressive will Anthony Davis be? That's going to make the difference in that series. But if the Lakers were to lose Dwight Howard and Avery Bradley, that would make a major difference in their chances to win a championship.
Yep. Dwight get left behind?
Maybe. I hate for it to come to that,
Yes.
but it could be.
Well, LeBron has never shied away from sharing his voice, so we wait.
Bullshit. That's a damn lie. When they asked him about Tamir Rice, he shied away like a motherfucker. So knock it off with that. This nonsense about LeBron James and how they constantly try to cast him. He just shied away when they asked him about China. Okay? People say, well, you know, why should he talk about China? China's not black people. LeBron James is a globalist. That means that you're supposed to speak about everything. And how complex is that? The people in Hong Kong were fighting for their rights to a quote-unquote democratic society. Right? LeBron James living in America. Supposedly, you're for democracy. Allegedly. So how difficult would that be for you to say that you're for the quote-unquote protesters? Isn't it ironic now that you have this staged event, but still an event nonetheless, where people are protesting here in America? And LeBron James has jumped right in because that's where his bread is buttered, acting as if he's a social activist. But anyway, we'll see how things